Hello everyone and welcome to my first ever actual YouTube video. I plan on this video to talk about some of the books I recently read, and then I just picked some that I really just wanted to talk about in general. Before I do that, I've been wanting to kind of explain why, I wear, this whole fit, especially, a plague doctor mask. So if you're just more in the books, you can, skip this part. So, basically, I started a Instagram account probably around, an exact year now. I think I did it in late June. I know I at least did it in June, so it's almost a year now, which is crazy. But I did it mostly to talk about books, but especially queer books, because I feel there there are accounts that talk about it, but I wanted my central thing to be talking about certain reppin' stuff, and basically wanted a account that I would actually look for myself to find book recommendations. And I also like to use it as a way to kind of explain my experience as a queer person, because for those of you who don't know this, I'm aro-ace, which stands for aromantic, and asexual, which, if you don't know what that is, I recommend looking it up. I might make a video about that and kind of my experience. I don't know yet. But, so, I like talking about that on there, and, especially last year when I made this, there were some people that I know that I didn't feel safe to really come out with, and these are people I would see every day, and, so I wanted to be able to make stuff without having to hold back, worrying about, oh, these people are gonna see, and I didn't want that, just this handful of people to stop me from, enjoying myself and expressing myself. So, I decided to wear a mask. So, and I always liked plague doctors, so I picked a plague doctor mask, so that I can do the things I want. I don't have to hold back, and I don't have to worry about being in potential danger, just having people that I don't really need to know. So, and I think even if I was in more of a better situation, and I could be more open about myself, I still would wear something, because I do kind of like that, split between, my personal life and then, this kind of stuff, which, it might sound kind of, ironic or weird that someone who literally makes, videos like this, or has, an Instagram like I do, to want, privacy, but I guess I do, because I still have, personal things that people don't need to see and stuff. So, yeah, so if you were ever wondering why, I never really talk about it on Instagram, because it is kind of a lot to explain. So, now it's enough about me talking about stuff that has nothing to do with reading or books, which this video is about. So, we will get to that now. Okay, so first, I want to talk about stuff that I read, this year, so from, January to now. So, the first one, I'm not gonna do this, in actual chronological order, but, so, the first one I want to talk about is a book called The Empress of Salt and Fortune, by Nevo, and it's pretty short. I think it's like about only like 100 pages. I just tried to look, and then I realized I have a mask on, and it's not easy to read things with tinted goggles on, so hot tip for everyone. But anyways, so what I like about this book is it's a lot different than what I expected to be. So basically, without really giving anything away, it's about this kid. I don't think they really give their age, but I imagine them like either like early teens to like late teens, basically. I was gonna say 20s, but I don't think so. And basically they, their job is to, like, take in stories and, remember them and to record them. And basically they come across this woman, this older woman named Rabbit, which is a nickname for her. And she basically tells her story about how she was, the advisor to the Empress, and how the Empress was kind of forced into this marriage, and she was never supposed to really have any political power or anything, and basically how she did gain power. And I really like this book because of the way it's told, because it's not told in like a traditional narration. It's basically showing Rabbit telling the kid the story, and it really reminds me of like an older family member just telling you like stories of them when they were younger, or just family, like, or when they were younger. Just, it's just very interesting to hear, and it feels very authentic in that way, and I really like how the author did that and made it different in that way. I could see some people not liking that because it's not perfectly in the actual scene. Like, it really does feel like someone is sitting there explaining it to you, which I get narrating technically is that, but like it literally feels like, you know, this person who is like your superior because of age is sitting there telling you a story. So I could see people not liking that because there's kind of this separation from traditional narration where, you know, you're reading it and you feel like you're in the actual story. But I liked it. I would definitely recommend this. On Goodreads, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And another thing that some of you might be interested in is that there really isn't any romance in this. Like, there's mentions, but it's not like, I wouldn't even consider it a subplot. It's more just to explain her story. Rabbit mentions a guy she loved, but like, it's not really in a huge detail and stuff. So if you're kind of looking for stuff that has a lot of romance in it, I would definitely check this one out. And there's also Queer Up. The storyteller uses they, them pronouns. The Empress has both male and female lovers. And I know I just said that there's not a lot of romance, but they're not really like significant, I guess. Just like how I said, Rabbit's kind of romance wasn't that really significant. It's kind of like that. So this is the first book that I recommend. It's called Empress of Salt and Fortune. I just recently learned that it's a series, and I'm really excited to read it more. I didn't realize it was, so I'm pretty pumped about that, actually. Okay, so this next book, I think that this is the last book I just read, and it is called When the Angels Left the Old Country by Sacha Lamb. And so it is basically about an angel and a demon, and they are friends, and they describe them as like study partners, because they both reside in a synagogue, and they study together in a synagogue, and the demon, whose name is Little Ash, it's basically like Ash Jr., but they say Little Ash, decides that they should go to America, and they do it through like Ellis Island, and for a book that's about like the main characters are an angel and a demon, it gives a lot of interesting insight on like history and like the Ellis Island era, and especially, like I said, these two like were living in a synagogue, and it shows a lot of, I mean, it's all basically Jewish representation. And what's interesting is talks about like how angel and demons are kind of seen in Judaism, which is interesting. I've never seen anything like that, or read anything like that, so that piqued my interest a lot. And it also, like I said, explains a lot of the process of going through Ellis Island and going on the ships to there, and especially showed a lot of the Jewish experience, which I feel like they don't talk a lot about in history classes and stuff. So that was really, interesting to see, especially in a book about, an angel and a demon. I really just like the plot as well. I thought it was really interesting, and it just kept me hooked the entire time. Every time I wasn't doing anything, I was reading this. This is the first book I've read where a character uses it itself pronouns. I think the author did a really good job at it, and handling it respectfully, and it's very interesting. And the book talks about that characters kind of figuring out its identity and stuff. It actually doesn't really have a name at first because it doesn't stay with one, and it's interesting when it kind of figuring that out, and it was really cool to see that in something. So this character also is in a relationship with someone with that's a guy, so I consider that a queer relationship. I really recommend this one, especially if you really like history and stuff. I mean, you don't have to, it's not like they sit there and lecture you on facts and stuff, but I definitely recommend it. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to talk about that I read this year is a book called A Psalm for the Wild Bill, and it's by Becky Chambers. And so this book is about this universe, basically, years before it was highly industrial, and then the people, they made, robots did their bidding, basically. They did most of the work, and then suddenly these robots became intelligent enough that they were basically, had sentience like humans did. And the humans realized that they destroyed the planet with all their industrialization, and the robots, since, they are actually sentient now, decide that they just don't want to be tools for working, create a treaty where they move to a different planet, because this is, sci-fi, obviously. People basically vow to never make robots like that again, and they deindustrialize, basically, and the setting is basically like sci-fi, but also very nature-esque and woodsy. It's kind of like a bunch of little futuresque villages and like woods and stuff. And since the destruction the people made when they were, in an industrial society, they really try to protect the Earth. Like, it's not our planet, but like their planet. And they only occupy so much of it. There is a point where no one is allowed there. It's all just wilderness. So that setting in itself, I think, is very pretty and very comforting. And so the main character is a monk who goes around and just gives advice to people. If someone just wants to vent to them, that person can do that, and they also make tea for that person to help comfort them. And they kind of decide to do that on a whim. They're like in their own monastery, and then they decided to do that and learn how to do it well. But they start to realize that they're not sure now if that's what they want. They feel like everything is too much of the same. So they decide one day to cross the line, like where people are allowed to go to the uncharted wilderness, and there they meet a robot. And I won't give too much away after that. And I realized I was wrong when I said that when the angels left the old country was the first book I ever read that used it pronouns, because this book actually does. That completely slipped my mind until I started thinking about it right now. So the two protagonists in this are both agender. One uses it itself, the other uses they, them, so that's pretty swag. And it's a very, like, just cozy story. It talks about, just trying to exist and figure out what you want to do with yourself, and just understanding the world around you. And this has zero romance, even less than Empress of Salt and Fortune. So again, if you're someone who is doesn't really want to read romance or isn't really into it, this is definitely a book you could read. Again, it's pretty short. And yeah, I gave this 5 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it, and there is a second book, and I'm also excited to read that. So, Psalm for the Wild Goat. So, the next book that I read in 2023 is actually a manga, and it is Love the Answer by Yuta Isaki. Utah, not the state. Sorry. Anyways, so this book is about a girl who is going into college and who was pressured, by society and her friends to date people. And this is before she gets into college. And she, it just never fit her. She tried, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't feel right to her. And basically when she gets to college, she starts to figure out her sexuality and her gender a little bit. So this is also a very wholesome book, or manga, and I really recommend it. The art is pretty in it, and it's just really nice to see rep even, in manga, because sometimes it just is really presented incorrectly. And it's also great to see A-Spec rep, because the main character realizes that she's Arrow Ace, and even if this is just a really good book that just talks about how labels work and just queer identities in general. You're someone who wants to learn more about that kind of stuff, and you want to do it in a more, I don't know, amusing way compared to just looking at like Wikipedia or Mayo Clinic. This is definitely, I recommend this. And the author is also Arrow Ace, so it's pretty cool. So this is definitely a manga I recommend. So yeah, is love the answer? I was immediately drawn to this book in the bookstore because of the ace flag on it, so it's pretty cool. Okay, so one book that I didn't read this year, but I just kind of want to talk about, is the book Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I read this book, and then like 3 or 4 months later, I actually watched the show. So, and before I read it or anything, I would get posts on Instagram and stuff talking about people shipping the two main characters, which is a demon named Crowley, and then an angel named Azrael. And when I read this book, I was like, I can kind of see it, but like, it's like it's either way. I should probably explain what this book is about, and it's, like I said, Crowley and Aziraphale, angel and demon, are basically trying to stop the apocalypse, because they don't want the world to end. They like just chilling in the world. And they shouldn't be besties, but they are. But anyways, so like I said, I read this and I was like, I guess I could kind of see the chemistry, but it wasn't like crazy. And then I watched the show, and oh my god, they ramped it up. Like, there was a lot more chemistry between those two. And so that was kind of funny to see that. So now I understand why people are saying that. Honestly, like the show is one of the only shows that I think I like more than the book, which is really crazy to say, especially on, the book recommendation account, but just the little things they add in, they really help solidify Crowley and Aziraphale's like relationship, whether that's supposed to be romantic or not. It's not really confirmed. I don't think it is. Maybe it is. I'm still kind of new to this fandom. So, anyways, so like it really adds to it, and they tweak a couple of things in the show, and like I said, they add their background story, and they just add other things that I think really just solidify and improve the plot. And what's really interesting is that they're making a second season, and there's only one book, and the first season covers this whole book. So by now there's been trailers out. It's coming out in July, but it's just very exciting because like there's nothing, no other book or anything to go off of, and it's very exciting because I think they handled going off the book well. I'm not worried about them kind of coming up with their own stuff. And I don't know for season 2, but I know season 1, Neil Gaiman was one of the authors was involved in, you know, the production, so I'm sure for the second one he also has say, so, you know, so the author will even have some say in it too, so I'm pretty excited. I know this is more talking about the show, but I definitely recommend this book too. I brought up a lot of comforting books, which is really funny, because I don't usually, like, look for comforting books. I'm more of a traumatize all the characters sort of reader, so it's kind of funny, but yes. And also just kind of the takes on, I guess, Christianity and interpretation of the Bible and stuff is pretty cool. And it's also meant to be interesting, but also funny, so I definitely recommend the book, and I really recommend the show, and I'm excited for season 2, so yay! Okay, so this next book isn't necessarily a book rec, because I never read it, but I wanted to add this in, because this is my YouTube channel, and I can do whatever I want. So, when I was a young tyke in high school, I took a lovely class called AP Lang. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. It's basically a class that you read nonfiction stuff in. And so my teacher assigned this story, and it was around 20-ish pages. In this version, I'm pretty sure it's 22 pages, but I'm sure it ranges. I was so annoyed that she assigned us a 20-page thing of reading for homework that I just didn't read it. And I read Spark Notes, but it was really, the Spark Notes that I read were really interesting, and I kind of regret not reading it, and the friends in that class even said it was good, and they're like, why didn't you read it? So basically the book, I got it recently, and it is the yellow wallpaper, and I even got one that kind of has a pretty cover, and I haven't properly, like, read it, but I do know the plot, and I would recommend it. Like I said, it's 21 pages, which this is, obviously not 21 pages, this is different stories, but what made it more interesting was, like I said, that it was a nonfiction class, so we learned about the context behind this book and why it was written, and that made it more interesting. If you think about reading this, I would definitely look into that too, because there was a message with this. And also, it's just a nice, silly little disturbing story. Excited to actually physically read it and not just read a plot summary, so... Okay, so the last book that I have read and I am recommending, which I also read before 2023, is a book called The Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. And this is like YA horror, and I was reluctant to read it. When I first started reading it, I thought it was going to be like a popular girl versus the different misfit girls, but I was wrong, so glad I kept reading. And this is probably one of my most favorite books, actually. It's horror, like I said, but it kind of has a little bit of like a feminist twist to it, so that's fun. There's Sapphic rep, and there's also Ace rep in it, so that's also fun. I really like the way the author narrates. I really like the way she narrates the horror elements in the story. It's very vivid. It's very different, I think, unique in the way that she presents this antagonist in this, and I definitely recommend it. So yes, Sawkill Girl. So that is all. Still crazy to me that I've talked this long to a phone alone in a room. Interesting thing to learn about myself. But thank you for watching. I hope for these quality of these videos to get better. I've never used YouTube in this way, so I'm learning, just like I was learning on Instagram. And so I want to make more videos like this, book recs. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do more specific ones. I think this is more just a broader one for a start. So yeah, and I definitely want to talk about just some queer stuff in general, I think. But for now, everything's kind of up in the air. Like I said, I've never done this before, so I'm still figuring this all out. So you can like and subscribe, and you can also follow my Insta, smack period books. There's no caps. No cap. But yeah, so thank you for sitting there this long, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, night, wherever you are. If you're in the void, then a nice, yeah. So, see you next time.